Hello everyone, welcome back to another video by Eclipse on my YouTube channel. So the vacation time is over and it's time for me to hit up the chair back in the studio. I'm gonna be working on my first release after the while, and I will keep that as a kind of a secret and a bit of a surprise for in some of the next videos when I have more material and more information to give you. But anyway, so the first thing I want to mention that discount for psychedelic tips will be extended, as there was a massive amount of emails for me coming to my address with a request to extend the discount. So I will do so, and I will keep it for 99 euros for some amount of time. Anyway, so yesterday I wrote a blog, so you who follow my blog, you probably got a notification on the email that I made the form, Google form, where you are able to write me the ideas about the next videos. And I'm now in a mood where I want to try that you choose what you're gonna see next. So I already got several ideas. I won't be able to cover all of them in one video, but I already chose one, and this is the group processing. So this video is gonna be about the group processing. Now, when it comes to the group processing, I must say that it depends from your setup, like what way you organize yourself and what are you putting on those groups and how do you group them. So basically, as you might know already, my groups, when I start a new project, are always like kick and bass will go on one group, the drums will go on a second group, FXs, this is all the single shot sounds. As you can see, I didn't put all of them, so I will send them right now. This is usually happening when I do bounce and I forget to send them again to the same. So basically, if I now solo, so FXs, I don't use much of the sends on the FXs. So sometimes I do create the effects group, or some of the reverbs and the delays I sometimes use on a send, but mostly I use always on an insert, as I want to manipulate with all the parameters inside the reverbs, delays, and so on. So for each sound, I like to set it up separately. Anyway, so when you see the FXs, basically I mean on the single shot sounds. And also, there's gonna be one video about the single shot sounds, which I believe is my strongest point, but I'm still not ready, as I'm gathering a lot of information from the teachings that I do one-on-one with some people. When I give them some tips, I see they do not get it in a straight way, so I realize that I develop some kind of skills that is not that easy to pass to the others, and therefore I'm thinking a lot about it, and I believe this is my strongest point in production. All of those single shot sounds, I believe I do, and I create those single shot sounds really good, and that way I want to give a special attention on this video, so I will need some time to think about it, and in a way how I will make this video. Anyway, so this is, and the fourth group are the leads, which I do not have in this track. Basically I do have is this, all the smalls, all the sequences, all the things that will repeat. Are they melodies? Are they the arps or something like? So all the looped sequences, to say, will go on another one. And depending from what kind of group, the processing will depend as well. So I will start with the kick and the bass. You can see I have two different basses in this, but I didn't send this one as well. This is the new track I'm working on, which will be the last one for my next EP. And also, sorry to chop this video, but I just want to tell you that from now on, I will probably stop with releasing singles. I will release some singles from time to time, but I will create much bigger releases in a way of I will create the EPs with 2, 3, 4 tracks, and I will make those releases a little bit less. Let's say 3 releases a year or 4 releases a year, as I really used, I believe I used this pause of all the gigs and all this game in a good way to rethink of how I'm gonna continue with my career and what would be the best way. And I remember 5-6 years ago we used to release only those EPs with 2, 3, 4 tracks and so on. And to be honest, I like that much more, because that way each release will have kind of a value, while all the releases and all this battle releasing every month or two just to make a mark and that you are there and chase for a Beatport top 10, I'm just gonna stay out of that, and I will focus more on my music, and I will try to bring the releases with much bigger value. Anyway, sorry for chopping out this video talking about myself. So when it comes to the kick and bass, the first thing I want to do, because lately I'm creating kicks and basses with a lot of mid. So the one thing I'm gonna do for sure is I'm gonna put the FabFilter Pro L2 on the post fader channel, but as we can see, it doesn't limit anything. I'm just keeping it there just in a case if I start EQing a little bit more on the mids, so I have straight away something that will limit that. And here I have oscilloscope. Okay, just a second. But it's just there to check if everything all right. And usually I always have the Simplon on the kick and bass group, and Simplon is for me the easiest way to have high pass and low pass filter, and that you do not need to automate the bypass all the time. Because if you automate on your track, in your arrangement, if you automate the bypass, the more plugins you put on it, it will happen that in one moment it will create the glitch. So you will have a problem to bypass the filter, and it won't be that easy. So for that reason, I believe this is the plugin that changes the phases the less from all of them when those faders are at their lowest points. So filter is at 75,000 hertz, and filter 2 is at 4.8 hertz. There is a change, and it does do a little bit of making a little bit low end a little bit less. And there's a plugin to measure this, but I don't want to go too technical. But I believe this choice is the easiest way, as it doesn't change that much of the sound when you just insert it inside. And that way I'm able to create low pass and high pass filter like really fast just by also. There will be a problem on the end where you are bringing all of them, and I will keep this for some other time, because this topic can be also really wide, and also I need to do a little bit more of the research. But basically, when it comes to the kick and the bass, what I would do sometimes, if there's some problems, I will use multiband in the low. The multiband will something that I will use to process the kick and the bass. Limiter is another thing. Compression I won't use on kick and the bass, because there is no sense with such an intense sequence as a kick and bass, where you have a lot of lows and mids and everything at the same time, to put a compression on it for me, there are not much things that you can do. I will put sometimes compression on compressor or compression on the bass line or on the kick separately, but together I'll use more of the multiband compression. Also EQing sometimes. The EQing will be the third thing. Now for the drums, basically that would be it from the kick and the bass, because I always try to do the most of the processing on inserts on each of separate things. As in the past, when I used a lot of processing on the groups, I ended up with the problems. So let's say I bounce this one and I bounce it with all the plugins inside of it, and then I keep the bass line. So I need to reduce all what I did in a way that it doesn't double. So it's a little bit messy, and I advise all of you, it's much easier, much more simple if you all the things that you can do on the separately on the sequences one by one, not on the groups. While on the groups, on the drums, as you can see, I use the standard clip and I put it a bit more extreme. As you can see, I'm reducing a lot of peaks on them, and I really love the way. I know this is a bit extreme, but I love what it does. It's kind of gluing them together. It's kind of removing all the tops, because especially when you are working with the hi-hats, they're gonna have a lot of transients. And I love to layer my hi-hats as well, because I will use one sharper hi-hats for really highs, just to have these punches as a transients. I will use a shaker to create the softness, and I will use plenty of different hi-hats just to create them to be richer and to sound as I like them to sound. And also the open hi-hat on top of it, and one closed hi-hat, and there's gonna be a lot of transients in those groups. So what I like to do is always to put the standard clip or some other kinds of a distortion. I used to do that in the past with Saturn 1 with a broken tube, and if I mute this, and then if it's too much, I used to use mixing over here in a way of just removing some of the tops, and that way with this kind of processing, I'm kinda making all this high-end as a one unit. I have this feeling that nothing jumps out anymore, as when you clear all the tops, all the transients that are jumping out, this is what happened. So basically from the FXs, I don't have nothing right now over here, but what I would have in the FX or the single shot units, basically not much. It might happen that I will use a compression on them, but basically something like this will be really smart thing to do, just removing all the stereo information below 100. And this is the thing I will do. What compression? Compression usually I would do Fab Pro C2, and I like it because it's faster. It's faster for me to set up all the parameters, as I can see visually everything, how much it compress, does it over compress, and so on, so on. Also, I will be able to use the side chaining, and I will be able to maybe compress only the middle or only the side, and so on. I love this compressor. The option, the interface is just an amazing. This is the first compression I would use. When it comes to the compressor that I think sounds the best is definitely the glue. Sorry. So Syntonic, the glue, is one of the compression that I will use sometimes even on the kick and the bass, as something really nice happening in the low end when you use the glue compressor. So this is from the groups of FXs. As you can see, I won't do much of them. And when it comes to leads, because the leads I will push a little bit louder, I will use for sure the limiter on the end of it, on the pulse fader. and it might happen that I will use compression, but I will compress only the mids, as the leads I like to put on a side all the time, and that I'm doing with the Fab Q Pro C2, and just by moving this stereo link totally on the right, and if it's mid over here, that means that it will compress only what stays in the middle. I have some melody over here. I'm not sure how does it sound. If it's a bad one, don't take it. Please don't judge me, because as I see it's in a red, so probably not something that I'm really satisfied with. So from that side, just a second. So from the lead side, I will use not much the limiter and maybe the compression, and also the low cut on the side, as I showed you for single shots as well. So there's a one really nice preset over here. Just I will make it a little bit more around, so I will put it on 200. So that will be all from it, but this is not the only groups I will use. For example, when I use the leads, I will have this melody in at least 3 different layers. For the main leads, I will have more than 5 layers all the time. So I will always, when I have one lead that I create in different layers, when I have more than 2 layers all the time, I'm grouping all of them as a one unit, and this is where I'm putting a lot of effort in. Again, compressing the mid, keeping that everything is on the same, maybe putting the standard clip for the leads to remove all the peaks that are jumping out. I will do the low cut, probably if I have a lot of automations, that I will have for sure some dynamic EQ or some of the multiband compressions, and so on, so on. So my advice is that you group the things only that will be as a one unit only. That way the processing will have much more sense. Use the less groups as possible will also help you because of the routing. For example, now if I have this melody in 3 or 4 different layers, and then I have another group, so that group will also go to this group of the leads. So if I have really strong processing over here, and then I have the strong processing in a subgroup of it as well, then when you put something out of that group, it will sound completely different. So this is why I always keep my those 4 groups I can call buses as well, as they are more as a buses, but I have also separate buses on the end, as I'm using 4 different outputs, and you can see on my mixer on the end of it, just a second. Okay, so on the end of it I have those 8.1 and 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, but I'm not using much of the processing on them. I try to keep them separately, but they are just different outputs. Anyway, it looks like this is a double job, but anyway, I just want to keep my buses without any processing, and I'm just used on having those groups over here, and they will be always in the same colors, and so on, so on. So when it comes to the groups, if you have something like, you see I have something layered over here, but they are not on the group. I just do not want to group. I do not want to have a lot of groups. I want to have less groups as possible, and I will try to do all the major processings inside the inserts, but in the moments when I have more than 2 channels of the same sequence, let's say this lead group or melody or ARP, in that moment I will put on the group, because in that way when I have 3 different layers summing into the one, there are really big chances that, especially with the automations and the big resonances on them, that there will be some peaks that will move through the frequency spectrum, and I want to keep that in a control. All right, thank you very much. This was the first video after the while, so I always need sometimes to adapt on when I make a bigger pause, and this video is going pretty, I think it went pretty smoothly. I'm not sure, I will see when I start editing, but yeah, try to find on my blog page eclipmusic.com, and then when you go on a blog page you will see the blog where I wrote the next videos from the eclip, and you will be able to find the link for that Google form where you'll be able to write down the ideas. So I will go through from the next video I will try to cover more than one topic, because this one I liked this one the most, as I didn't need to prepare much, as I already knew what I'm gonna say. So yep, that will be it for now, and I hope to see you soon. Bye, ciao.